Good evening and welcome to this regular meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth. Our meeting date is Monday, May 11th, 2026. I'm Mayor Todd Kasenberg and I'll call this meeting to order. I ask the clerk to note our starting time for the minutes is 7:01 p.m. A warm welcome and greetings are extended to councillors, staff, delegations, and observers who will participate in this meeting, regardless of whether they are physically in attendance in the council chamber in Listowel or being connected through web technologies. We begin tonight's meeting with the playing of O Canada. Those in chambers as able are invited to stand. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe peoples. We wish to recognize the long history of Indigenous peoples in Canada and show our respect to them today. We recognize their stewardship of the land. May we all live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship. Tonight we have a pleasant responsibility and opportunity. We are going to present to the winner, one of the winners of our Inspiration Awards through our Celebrate North Perth Awards program, his award. He was unable to attend our volunteer appreciation event a few weeks ago, and so tonight we have with us one of our winners. So Deputy Mayor Kellum and I are going to come forward and we'll present the award to one of our winners. Apparently I should be careful because this will bash against the chain and make noise. That's not a great thing. All right, it's our pleasure tonight on behalf of this council to recognize one of our three recipients of this year's Celebrate North Perth Inspiration Awards. And this gentleman's name, a well-known name in our community, Mark Kennedy. Mark was born in Listowel and raised on a farm near Fordwich. He attended LDSS and has been living in Listowel for the last 19 years. He is employed at Ideal Supply, a job he has held for 30 years. You're giving Doug a run for his money, I think, right? It was also almost 30 years ago that Mark began volunteering for the Listowel Junior B Cyclones, fulfilling various roles with the team, from timekeeper to equipment manager, doing everything with determination, capability, and pride. While his duties have changed over the years, his unwavering commitment to the team certainly has not. Whether he's sharpening skates, getting supplies, filling water bottles, washing jerseys, or tidying up the dressing room, he's doing it with the dedication and a sincere desire to benefit the players and the organization. For someone that loves the sport of hockey but never played it, this is a way to contribute to his community, meet other people, and have, of course, a front row seat from which to watch all the games. In fact, it's said that Mark may have only missed one game over all those years. The date was November 4th, 2000, and Mark made the difficult decision to attend his sister's wedding instead of that night's hockey game. The arena soon became his second home, and other volunteers, players, and friends he has met over the years have become like family. Wherever Mark goes, he sees someone he knows, and it's usually a hockey connection of some sort. He has made many valuable friendships and acquaintances throughout the years, often keeping tabs on players after their junior B careers and celebrating their accomplishments both on and off the ice. Mark has been supporting the team through many wins and losses, and is proud to say that he's been there through all 4 Cherry Cup and both Sutherland Cup championships. Recently, Mark was honored as the Equipment Manager of the Year by the Greater Ontario Hockey League. Comments on the Facebook post congratulate him for the well-deserved recognition and his many years of service, some even calling him a legend. Mark's many years of volunteering is admirable and inspirational. Proof that giving of one's time is truly beneficial, both to the group or organization, and I know the Cyclones thank you, and also to the individual. I know he's grateful for the opportunity to do it and for all the friends that he's made along the way. Your council, Mark, salutes you and recognizes you tonight with this award. Will you come forward and join us, please? Thank you, Simon. That is one of the best parts of being mayor, is to get to recognize the amazing accomplishments that we have in our community. All right, so back to the meeting. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be available there after this meeting as an archived video. To those who are viewing this meeting via the YouTube channel, a warm welcome to you. To those present in the gallery today, by attending a public meeting of the Council, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded, and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream and the archive. The chair and/or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances when deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and/or unacceptable behavior and/or comments. At this time, I invite your decorum over the course of the coming meeting, and you can see that all councillors are in their chairs in the chamber in Listowel. Let's move to item 5 on our agenda pertaining to pecuniary interest. Members of council have full lives with engagement in the community. Sometimes they may find themselves with a potential financial or pecuniary interest in an item that is on the council's agenda. Provincial legislation mandates councillors to declare this interest and in so doing avoid direct involvement in the consideration of or voting on the item. I invite all councillors with a perceived pecuniary interest, including those who have already so documented in writing, to verbally advise the chair in public session. Documentation is to be submitted, if not already done, pursuant to council procedures. Councillors may declare now or at any point in the meeting should such interest be recognized. Colleagues, do any of you wish to avail yourselves of this opportunity? I am not seeing it, so let's move forward. As chair, I'll manage the flow of proceedings tonight and largely in accord with our agenda and rules of procedure. Some may be participating remotely by web conference. I didn't check with the clerk on that, but not tonight. All right. So we don't need to even tell them about how they can get help. So let's focus now on the people's business. Part of that focus is achieved when those in the chamber silence and put away their phones. Regarding item 6 of our agenda, I have a resolution for our consideration for the approval of the agenda as follows, that the agenda for tonight's council meeting be approved. Can I call for a mover? Moved by Deputy Mayor Callum, seconded by Councillor Richardson. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, if we're ready, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Sometimes I think the hamsters are a little slow to start on this one. Yeah. All right. Let's move forward then to item 7 on our agenda, the so-called consent agenda. Consent items are placed on our agenda because they are believed to be non-contentious, yet they may warrant council's recognition and/or action. Grouping them expedites our business. However, any councillor wishing to extract an item from the consent agenda for discussion, debate, or individual action may do so. Colleagues, there are quite a few items on the consent agenda tonight, including the minutes of our last regular council meeting. Anything to extract here or any corrections you'd like seen made to the minutes? I'm not seeing any hands raised yet. I would like us to have a look at 7.31 tonight. Anyone else before we have a look at this? All right. Colleagues, you can see here a report that was issued, in fact, first to the Board of Health at Huron Perth Public Health pertaining to growing concerns about food insecurity. And there is emerging data, certainly, about the challenges that are being faced by people living in our community and across Huron and Perth counties with regards to both food insecurity and general growing sense of income deterioration. I am not suggesting at this point that we pass a resolution that would consent to send a commendation or approval or any of that kind of thing. But what I would like to do is suggest that we ask staff to come back with a report about potential municipal actions that are relevant as recommended in that report. So I'm suggesting that perhaps that's the action tonight. Anyone wishing to support me on this one? Okay, so Deputy Mayor Callum will move. Councillor Blazek, you'll be our seconder. Any discussion or debate? Clerk's table with us? All right, let's have a look at that resolution and vote. And that is carried. Thank you, colleagues, for your consent on that. All right, unless I see hands for another item on the consent agenda, we'll consider the general resolution. Any last moment? All right, let's do it then as follows. The consent items 7.1 to 7.31 be received for information, and the minutes of the April 27th, 2026 regular council meeting be adopted. Moved by Councillor Rothwell, seconded by Councillor Duncan. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. All right, at this point, it is proposed we move to agenda item number 8. We have scheduled a delegation from one with interest in our council's business or authority. Remind the delegation that in accordance with this council's procedural bylaw, a total time of 10 minutes of presentation is permitted, with a brief question period to follow, the duration of which is at the discretion of this guy. A delegation is to present on the topic declared on the submitted request for delegation forms, and deviations from the topic are generally not acceptable to this council or to the chair. Decorum is, as always, required. Further to my request that we maintain an atmosphere of respect and courtesy, I will remind those delegating that they should not use the names of those who have not consented to such use. Our delegation tonight is from Norma and Jake Curra of Atwood, who wish to comment on item 9.1.1, an application for consent to sever. Welcome to both of you. Please come forward. And I learned, I have to tell you, in seeing the prep for this, that the guy I've been calling Jake is actually a Gerald. That was news to me tonight.
I have some pictures of our property that we're discussing tonight. If you want to pass them around in case somebody isn't familiar with our property. My name is Norma Curra. I'm here tonight speaking on behalf of myself and my husband, Gerald. We acquired our land in Atwood in 1984. My husband opened his mechanic shop in 1987. We have loved our time in Atwood, raising our daughters here and making many connections in the community. And one of our daughters still lives in Atwood and is raising her family there. I've always told people that Atwood is a wonderful place to raise your family. Over the 42 years we've always contributed to this community. We supported the Lions Club, the fire department, minor hockey, the local soccer leagues and swim teams, and my husband's business was one of the founding partners of the LDS's co-op program. I am a current member of the board of managers at the Atwood Presbyterian Church and a volunteer at the Elma Public School weekly. After years of supporting this municipality, paying taxes and donating funds and our time, we're asking for your help in securing the future of our property so that we can remain in Atwood, the town that we love, and be close to our 3 grandsons. Our parcel of land currently contains my husband's shop, which we live above, and the building beside it was used to be a Shell oil station, a yard which you're currently renting to a local entrepreneur who runs a fireplace business, and the field at the far end of it to the far north, which has been planted with trees in partnership with the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority. When we purchased this land, we always hoped that we'd be able to retire here. When my husband decided to retire, we began to look at selling the shop, and some of the property we discovered that Shell property right beside us had been rezoned to employment land. This was done without informing us and have left us with very few options for this land. We were told by Perth County Planning that perhaps it could be turned into its employment lands would have to be sold to like a car dealership or a factory or something. We've consulted with multiple real estate agents and have been told that there is no interest in employment land in Atwood. This has also forced our hand into severing the shop portion of our property from the shell property so that we can sell the shop. We've already invested around $12,000 into the process of trying to sever our property and are no further ahead. Also, the MTO is requiring that we remove one of the driveways that is currently shared between the properties, between us and the Shell property. They also require a barrier between the two properties. We're not sure what type of barrier. We need further clarification on that. Both the fireplace business and the shop receive shipments via transport trucks, and the safest way for them to enter and exit the property requires the use of both driveways. There's 2 driveways into the Shell property. Not only does the removal of the driveway create more unsafe conditions for the transport trucks, it also reduces the value and appeal for both the shop and the Shell property for future tenants. The field portion of our property was recently planted with hundreds of trees in partnership with Maitland Valley Conservation Authority. A stipulation of the grant and conservation agreement is that the trees must remain, and we have to maintain them for the next 15 years, or the trees have to be maintained for the next 15 years. Therefore, this land must remain as agricultural land, as it is currently zoned. I understand that Condition 6 has been proposed, and we strongly object to this being applied to our project at this time. The rezoning of our entire property would be costly and is not necessary for our current plans. Our proposed severance lot meets all of the relevant zoning requirements with respect to the frontage, the area, the building setback, the coverage, and so why would it need to be rezoned? There's no need to rezone the Shell property or field as the use of land remains the same. We hope that with your help, we can successfully sever our shop property while retaining the Shell property and the field is currently zoned. We hope to sell our shop to allow another business to grow and thrive in North Perth, and that we can retire in the community that we love. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Kura. Colleagues, questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any at this point in time, but stick around. It's on the agenda. We'll happily come back to you if something arises during that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. That brings us to item 9 on our agenda. I think I'll wait for Mrs. Kura to take her seat. All right. In item, first we're going to look at an item from the Development and Protective Services Department is item 9.1 of our agenda. In item 9.1.1, Council is invited to consider an application for consent to sever a parcel at the northern end of Atwood, known municipally as 7316 Road 164. The property to be severed is currently designated as employment lands, and the zoning is apparently a little complex at present, with intent to support what is an agricultural business with an attached residence. Looks like we have Moira Davidson with us tonight. She's a senior planner with the County of Perth, and she's going to walk us through this file. Welcome, Ms. Davidson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Council. The application before you is regarding a consent application for the subject property located at 7316 Road 164, also known as Highway 23. It's at the north end of Atwood. The following slide just summarizes the details of the application. So the current use of the subject property includes an agricultural commercial business. It's in the form of a vehicle repair shop and accessory owner-occupied residence, as well as a fireplace, chimney business, and associated contractor's yard, as well as vacant land. The applicant is looking to create a lot for the existing automotive repair shop as outlined in yellow. And this is to separate this lot, this area, from the remainder of the existing property, which contains the fireplace and chimney shop and contractor's yard and vacant land. When I speak to the fireplace chimney shop, that is the Shell property that the applicant was speaking to previously. The severed lands contain the automotive repair shop, as mentioned. They're currently zoned ACM2, and they'll have a lot area of 0.59 hectares. The retained lands are currently zoned light industrial, which is M1, future development, which is FD, and agricultural, which is A, and they'll maintain a lot area of 2.3 hectares. In addition to the imagery that was passed around by the applicant, some images are also shown on the screen. If you look to the top photo, this is a view of the existing vehicle repair shop as well as the chimney shop fireplace business. And then looking north to the bottom of the screen, that's the vacant land that exists to the north of the site. Further consideration on the retained lands, excuse me, I'm just trying to make sure I can state it right. On the retained lands is the Atwood sign, as it is currently maintained by North Perth, but it is located on the retained lands. It's not located on North Perth property at this time. So the application was circulated for public and agency comments. While no public comment was provided, the following agency and staff comments were provided. So a big item of discussion is Ministry of Transportation comments. The Highway 23, which is where the access to the retained and the severed lands is located, it is designated a provincial arterial highway, which means that it's subject to the King's Highway requirements that the MTO has. This includes things like development permits within 45 meters of the highway frontage, as well as 180 meters from any intersection of that road. And for that reason, that's why MTO has to be involved in providing comments and approval. MTO is supportive of this application, subject to the conditions that they provided us, which are detailed in your report, but I'll summarize now. They have a condition that they added where they're requiring that the existing connection between the retained lot and the severed lot be discontinued through use of a fence or a barrier of some kind. Further, they're also requiring that the southern entrance of the retained lot be removed as a condition of this application, as MTO is only permitting each lot to have one entrance. There's also a standard entrance permit that the MTO is requiring as a condition of this application. The secondary comments relate to the Atwood sign. Staff have added a condition that some type of agreement or easement be created with the applicants in regards to the Atwood sign. Currently, there is no agreement in place for its maintenance. However, in 2018, and I believe it's part of the package, there was a decision of this council to recommend staff to proceed with such an agreement. As there was no application before staff until now, the trigger to have such an agreement hadn't occurred, which is why it's coming up now and not in 2018 when the original sign matter was brought before this council. So in order to process a consent application, the application needs to align with both provincial and local policy. So this consent application, as it's currently proposed, is consistent with the provincial planning statement and is supported by the consent and employment policies of the county official plan. As for zoning, the subject property contains 4 separate zones, as it was illustrated on the first slide shown. Both the ACM zone and the A zone are primarily used within agricultural designations, recognizing larger lot minimums. The ACM2, which is a site-specific or a special zone, it allows for all uses within the ACM zone while prohibiting outdoor storage. The M1 zone and the FD zones that are located on the property, they reflect land uses that are within settlement areas. Of note is that the ACM2 zone doesn't exclusively or explicitly permit accessory residential uses, and there's also a minimum lot area for agricultural zones to be 30 hectares. And for these reasons of there being the 4 zones across the property and the lot sizing not aligning with urban types of zones. Staff are currently recommending a condition for rezoning to occur. This would allow for the zones of the properties to align with the North Perth zoning bylaw and would ensure compliance with permitted uses and lot criteria at this time. So subject to the conditions of consent that are listed in the report, planning staff are supportive of this proposed severance, and I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Davidson. Colleagues, questions, first comments? Councillor Johnston?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, Ms. Davidson. How would the retained land end up with 3 different zones on a parcel that's only 2-point-some hectares? Has it been zoned that way a long time?
Through the mayor, the zoning that exists on the parcel today has existed since the creation of the North Perth zoning bylaw. The ACM2 zone, which is applied to the automotive shop, is the only one that had a site-specific application applied to it, so it would have existed following the creation of the zoning bylaw, and I don't have the history as to why there was all these different zones applied to it, but at this time, it has existed that way for a significant amount of time.
With regards to MTO and the entrances, like there's already 2 there, so they want one to be taken away. They won't grandfather one. They won't grandfather it in when it's likely been there.
Since before we bought it, when it was
Yes.
the Shell Oil Depot.
Yes, since likely,
50
you know,
years ago.
60 years.
Yeah.
Through the mayor, yes, that's our understanding, is the MTO, in order to support this application, is requiring for an entrance to be removed.
Okay, colleagues, anyone else wishing to make comment? Councillor Rothwell?
Thank you, Mayor Todd, and thanks very much for the report. I noticed on the survey sketch on page 210 of our report of our agenda package, there's mention of a post and wire fence, and perhaps you could address or let us know, Minister of Transportation requires that a fence be between these 2 properties. Is a post and wire fence not satisfactory?
Through the mayor, I believe, and I was speaking with Nathan about this, I believe he says that post and wire fence is sufficient and would be argued to meet that condition. I'd have to confirm with him whether that is the case, as the post and wire fence doesn't completely come to the front of the property. Actually, I wonder if I can.
So just for clarity, then the post and wire fence goes on our surveyor sketch here, I think, up to what is shown as the asphalt driveway. Would that be correct?
I believe that's correct.
And do we know if and I know you're not speaking on behalf of Minister of Transportation, they can certainly speak for themselves, but are they requiring that fencing to extend all the way west to the boundary, the westerly boundary of the property as well?
Through the mayor, my understanding was that they would require it to be extended as westernly as possible to remove that connection. My understanding, and this is just their comments provided, I haven't been able to have a conversation with them directly, but it is to restrict the movement of vehicles between the 2 properties is their main concern.
Good. Thanks very much for that. My last question is dealing with the fact that the balance of the property is in the employment zone. Can you confirm as to whether or not our municipal services extend further north, that we'd be anticipating this would be a fully serviced site, or is this going to be on private sewage and water system?
Through the mayor, I can't confirm the servicing capacity at this time. I'm not familiar with it, but it is within the settlement area boundary. So the assumption would be that it would be planned for municipal services.
But municipal services don't extend out that far.
So through in response, while the services may not exist to date, the provincial planning statement does require municipalities to plan for servicing of the entirety of settlement areas, which is what that comment is related to.
Okay, let me actually redirect this to the senior staff table here. Any comments about servicing on that proposed lot?
So as council is aware, during the official plan exercise, just council and the staff did launch the master servicing plan, which was to look at how and when we could extend services to all the new settlement areas in North Perth, including the ones in Atwood. And although it may not happen immediately, there is a plan in the long term for servicing to be extended to all the urban, all the newly established urban settlement boundaries.
Okay, so that would include, in this case, the designated employment lands.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Who else would like some questions here, comments? Councillor Duncan.
So I don't have any questions, and if nobody else has any questions, I think now's the time to bring this forward. I spoke with the applicants earlier today, and then they were unaware of the condition to rezone the retained lands. And in discussions with them, I said I would ask council if we'd be willing to defer this application tonight to give them some time to work with the private planner to discuss this request to rezone the retained lands, as it's going to affect their plans.
Indeed. Can I ask the Curras maybe, do you mind, Ms. Davidson? You've heard what Councillor Duncan has put on the table here, the idea of a deferral until you have an opportunity to connect with professional advice. Are you comfortable with that recommendation at this point in time? Yes. All right. If I might offer a comment too, what is the appeal approach to MTO about this driveway matter? Like to me, I mean, there's possibilities here. One of the possibilities is you could move the severed line around the second driveway and keep it with the original parcel. I don't know if that's really unorthodox or even evil, but I look to Ms. Davidson to comment on that. You could change the boundary so that the driveway that they want you to collapse remains. But I think the bigger question is MTO is pushing its weight around here. And, you know, I think as was mentioned, this driveway has been there a very long time. I appreciate that, that the business face and perhaps offerings could change in the near future, depending on the choices that the Curras make. But I'm a little puzzled by this whole driveway thing and why that's become an issue, and would like to know how it is that applicants can proceed to challenge the MTO's ruling on this. CAO Snell has his hand raised. I don't know if he outranks you, Ms. Davidson, but we'll let him outrank you for now.
I was trying to take some of the heat off the planning department, because this is not really a planning department issue. To me, it's an issue of MTO. They do have jurisdiction. It's within their jurisdiction. Almost every application in my time here, which is going on 17 years, if they can remove an entrance, they will do so. The last one I recall was when MAD did the rezoning for their property on the south side of Listowel. Not that we can't fight for them to maintain, but I would say it's going to be a very uphill challenge to have MTO change their mind on entrance removal, just based on past experience.
Is it documented in some kind of standards that they have that when they have the opportunity to try to kill or cancel an access point onto a Queens or Kings Highway, I guess now, that they should do that they
Yes.
should make the play?
Basically, yes.
That's not pleasant, if you ask me. Okay. Do we have other questions or comments to be made here? Councillor Duncan has proposed an alternate course of action which appears to be acceptable to the applicants at this point. And so I think we'll proceed along that line unless there's any reservation from staff that we should hear at this point before we go down that path. So, Ms. Davidson, CAO Snell, any reservations about this proposed course of action? Okay, so I think the resolution then needs to be changed, and it needs to essentially say that the council defers a decision of recommendation or support here, right? It says advises the Land Division Committee or its delegated authority. We're saying we defer a decision on giving advice to the Land Division Committee. I think that's what it needs to say. Clerk Klein, reaction to my thoughts here? All right. Is there a time, like a clock ticking now for them, Ms. Davidson?
In response to the timelines, there are timelines under the Planning Act which require applications to be considered in a certain number of days. As the decision meeting, which would be the Land Division Committee for this consent, meeting hasn't been scheduled yet, it is likely that the timeline will pass. The applicants do have potential to execute their rights under the Planning Act for not meeting those decision timelines. And that's something that can be discussed with development or consultant planner following the deferral of the decision.
Okay. But at this point, it's council's wish to entertain a resolution. We defer giving advice to Land Division at this point in time. I'm seeing lots of nodding heads, so I think we're good. All right, so you have a draft of a resolution at the clerk's table. Councillor Duncan, I'm going to assume that you're the mover, seconded by Councillor Richardson. I see that. Any discussion or debate, colleagues? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. And just further to staff and perhaps the applicants, while you're having conversations regarding the road accesses and perhaps the removal of one of the three, perhaps there's a opportunity for discussions to allow for a joint access or a shared access between the two properties, so that in fact a transport truck we had mentioned, could actually access the northern property to be retained onto the Sudbury property. And it may constitute a revision to the application so that we would allow for that, but perhaps you could have those conversations with staff as well as your planning consultant to address the issue. I agree with CAO Snell, what's been mentioned. It's an uphill battle dealing with the rest of transportation, and frankly, it doesn't matter whether you're a small property owner or a large one. These discussions seem to only go one way, and that's for the MTO. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. Yeah, I think, I too would encourage you to see if you can escalate this to the Ministry of Transportation on that particular item, or to consider creative possibilities. I think that there might be some opportunities. Councillor Blazek.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Kasenberg. Would it be at all beneficial for this municipality to offer the Kurzai letter of support in this regard?
The CEO now looks mildly interested.
Certainly I could have discussions with our own operations people. As most of you know, I have a love-hate relationship with MTO, so I'm always happy to seek their support and trying to change their policies. But unfortunately, it probably won't help much, but I'm happy to try anyway.
Okay. You said seek their support. I thought you were going to say poke them in the eye. That was what I was expecting. But okay. It might be interesting to consider adding on a note of this council sending a letter to the MTO querying the basis of that decision and given its long-held presence in the community. CAOs now will certainly can rely on you to advocate and pick up this through the staff channels that exist, but it might add a little bit to that and to your story if you talk to them, if this council has weighed in and expressed its support on this matter. Colleagues, are you willing to consider adding to that resolution so that this council directs staff to have conversations and to issue a letter to the Ministry of Transportation of Ontario that express support for the retention of that extra driveway generally? Okay, it looks like Deputy Clerk Carter is typing, so that's good news. Let me just turn to the mover and seconder to make sure that people are comfortable. Yeah, okay, so comfortable with both the mover and seconder. Whatever we can do here, right? All right, so do you have a resolution that's viewable? Any further discussion or debate on this slightly augmented resolution now? I'm not seeing any, so I think we could have the vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Davidson. Appreciate you filling in for Mr. Garland tonight. All right, let's come back to the next item here from Development and Protective Services, item 9.1.2. This is a matter brought back to us for review from our last council meeting and relates to the temporary provision of bylaw enforcement services in Perth South. I'll call on Janie Pape, our Director of Development and Protective Services, to introduce this matter for a review by council of the proposed agreement. Welcome, Ms. Pape.
Good evening, Mayor Todd and Council. This report follows the information report brought on April the 27th. Tonight, Council is being presented with the formal agreement for temporary shared bylaw enforcement services with Perth South. The intent is to provide short-term operational support to a neighboring municipality, which aligns with our broader approach to collaboration and shared services where appropriate. Services will be limited and targeted specifically to property standards complaints, open-air burn complaints, public education related to encampments on private property. The agreement mirrors our existing agreement, a shared services model for the drainage superintendent position we have right now. Key terms include a duration of 6 months, maximum time commitment of 12 hours per month or 3 hours per week. Much of the work will be completed remotely from North Perth. While working in Perth South, the bylaw enforcement officer will be operationally supported by Perth South's chief building official. However, the officer will remain a full-time employee of North Perth. This is a full cost recovery model. Perth South will be invoiced monthly for wages, benefits, mileage, and administrative costs. This arrangement has intentionally been designed to be limited in scope and short-term in duration. Overall, this agreement supports a neighboring municipality, maximizes efficient use of staff resources, maintains cost neutrality for North Perth. We've looked closely at capacity before bringing this forward, and I'm confident in saying this arrangement will not negatively impact service levels in North Perth. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you, Chief Pape. Colleagues, questions or first comments? Councillor Andreessen.
Yes, thank you through you, Mayor Kasenberg, and thank you, Chief Pape, for this report. It is helpful to look at the agreement. I have two kind of questions about this, or comments. One is about item 2.02 in the invoices in the agreement. I would feel more comfortable in the agreement that we could state that in the event that an invoice is unpaid, this agreement would be terminated. I would feel comfortable or more comfortable if that were added because I just don't want any additional financial obligations to fall back onto the municipality of North Perth in the event that payments are not made by Perth South. The other thing that I was noticing in this agreement was how the travel time is not included. And I noticed that the work is going to involve bylaw enforcement around burning and around property standards, which could indeed involve going over to Perth South to check things out, which might mean more travel time. So what provisions are made in this agreement in the event that more time is needed beyond the 12 hours, I think it was 12 hours a week, in case things get out of hand, that it's more time that is required to fulfill those duties? So just those two things. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Kasenberg. So there is no allowance for more than 12 hours per month. We don't think we'll ever get to 12 hours per month. 12 hours is it. If they need more than that, they'll have to do that in-house. So that's not an option. As to your comment about the unpaid, we would stop services. It's that simple. Like, we aren't going to work for free.
If I may, I would prefer if that were actually in the agreement, if that's okay, just having that one clause.
Sure.
Then it's very clear that services terminate with the agreement. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else with comments, questions? I have a few points I'd like to make as well. In clause 2 of the contractual arrangement, the sort of whereas clauses, it uses the term regularly. It says, and whereas the bylaw enforcement officers or officers shall be regularly rendering service. I'm not sure about the use of the word regularly there. I think it may imply more than we intend. And so I would like to see that word struck potentially. Under item 2.01, we refer to the officer, apostrophe S, so the implication is singular. I appreciate that above in the whereases, we've kind of suggested that word officer could mean more than one, but I think that some clarity around this may be useful. Also in that same clause, there is commentary about proposed hourly rate. And I find myself vaguely nervous that the word proposed there is open to interpretation down the road, which we may not be benefiting from. So I think perhaps we want to say something like the initial rate is, or whatever, and be careful about that word proposed. Under item 3.01, there's a reference to municipality of Perth South, or the implication is it's a municipality, and it's in capital, so I assume that that is intended to be titular. In fact, I think the word should be township of Perth South instead of municipality, for the sake of clarity. I'm going to pick up on Councillor Andreessen's hint there. I think there's a little more to that story. In item 3.02, there is a clause that says, on average, no more than 12 hours a month. That implies potentially that they could tell us they need 20 hours in a given month, and we would not approve of that. So I think we may want to be careful about the use of the term on average. I would probably strike that from the contract and indicate that it is no more than 12 hours per month, period, hard stop. And finally, I admit to some interest in the cost calculation, especially when I consider, and I don't know the answer to this, but perhaps you do, Chief Pape, what this would cost in the private market if they went to contract with a private contractor. So we're charging them $70 an hour, but how did we get there? And what would a private contractor be charging for similar services?
Through you. The $70 per hour was in consultation with HR. We looked at all of the costs and added a small administrative fee. So we are not backing up here. This is fully cost neutral. We did not go out and take a look at what other contractors charge per hour. As again, this was to help a neighbor, and we were doing this at a cost neutral basis.
Okay, thank you. As I suggested, I think there are a number of other minor modifications that would clean up the intent in places, and I hope that they'll be looked at before we enter into that agreement. Colleagues, anyone else? I'm not seeing any. So I have a resolution. Do we want to ask that staff act on some of the contractual changes that I've identified and that Councillor Andreessen has suggested as well. Councillor Andreessen, you want to move a motion to act on the improving the contractual language as identified in our council meeting? All right. I think the resolution is going to read something like this. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves an amended agreement adjusted for council input to provide temporary shared services for bylaw enforcement with the Township of Perth South. Clerk Klein, does it sound about right to you? Thank you. All right, can I call for a mover? Councillor Anstedt, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Andreessen. Further discussion or debate? I'm not seeing any. So if you've got that resolution modified and ready, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you, Chief Pape. All right. Next, we have an item from the Environmental Services Department. It's item 9.2 on our agenda. In item 9.2.1, staff bring forward an update on the challenges now faced as a result of changes in the recycling system in Ontario. Council will recall that industrial, commercial, and institutional, or ICI, recycling was omitted from the province's mandate to create a producer responsibility organization that is now responsible for recycling system management in Ontario, leaving those targeted sectors exposed to the need to make alternate arrangements. Tonight, we're going to consider how we might interact with that alternate arrangement idea. So I'm going to call on Director of Environmental Services, Mark Hackett, to bring us up to speed on our options for ICI recycling in North Perth. Welcome, as always, Mr. Hackett.
Good evening, Mayor and members of Council. So, as the Mayor mentioned, the purpose of this report tonight is to provide an update on options for industrial, commercial, and institutional curbside recycling services, and also to seek direction from Council for 2027. So, as of January 1st, 2026, Council will recall that ICI recycling is no longer part of the residential Blue Box program in Ontario. That means curbside ICI recycling must be collected separately from residential recycling with no commingling allowed. So in response to that, Blue Water Recycling, or BRA, created a dedicated ICI program with biweekly collection on a separate route on a different day than the residential routes, resulting in increased costs. So for 2026, North Perth currently pays $71.40 per recycling wheelie bin for ICI, which is included in the operational budget each year, and that has taken place for many, many years. In 2026, BRA is absorbing the additional costs that are related to the new ICI recycling routes to allow municipalities time to decide on the long-term service delivery options. Starting in 2027, BRA will be implementing a $160 per wheelie bin annual fee for each ICI recycling bin in service. And this annual fee would reflect the full program costs across a large rural service area. For North Perth, we're estimating 320 bins that would result in a total annual cost of $51,000. This is an increase of about $27,000 over what we currently are charged when you calculate that at the $71.40 per bin. So looking at our current financial position, so since we moved to producer responsibility in 2024, we've been able to redirect approximately $450,000 of recycling savings into reserves. So even with the increased 2027 ICI curbside collection costs, our reserve contributions could remain strong, with a projected $159,000 to be directed to reserves in 2027, compared to a budgeted amount of $186,000 for 2026. So looking at the different options that we have, first option is to maintain this current service model. So the municipality would simply continue to fully fund the ICI collection as it always has since 1989. There would be no user fees for any businesses, churches, or community organizations. Some of the benefits of this would be that it supports waste diversion and landfill longevity. It encourages high participation rates with no user fees. It ensures fair and equal access to recycling activities for both ICI customers and residential customers. And it maintains financial stability and strong reserve growth. A key point for this option is that it continues a service model that's been in place, as I said, since 1989, where no fees are charged to either residential or to ICI customers for curbside recycling, thereby promoting participation in recycling throughout the community. The second option is to look at implementing some type of user fees. So under this scenario, there would be a $160 charge for an annual charge for all ICI wheelie bins. Some of the advantages of this would be that it improves cost recovery, and it also aligns costs with what your actual usage is. Some of the considerations, however, are that higher fees may discourage recycling participation, leading to an increase in recycling ending up in the landfill. It may have a greater impact on small businesses and community groups when compared to the impact on larger ICI customers. And implementing a user fee system would require some additional administrative work and support. The third option is simply to discontinue curbside ICI recycling collection completely in North Perth, and that simply means that we no longer offer curbside recycling collection. And there are some impacts to that as well. There'd be a significant drop in our diversion rates, leading to increased landfill capacity pressures. Small businesses would face higher private service costs if they did want to continue to recycle, and it would also result in reduced service levels across the community. So while BRA has recommended that municipalities institute some form of user fees for ICI curbside collection, staff are recommending option 1 to maintain the current service model. And the rationale for that is that since the Blue Box program originated in 1989, North Perth has never charged user fees for any recycling, either residential or ICI. Additionally, in 2021, under Council's direction, the Solid Waste Division transitioned to a fully self-sustaining cost recovery model with no expenses supported through the tax levy. The additional cost of maintaining ICI curbside recycling collection in 2027 can be absorbed within the current revenue structure while still allowing for strong contributions to reserves. Maintaining the current model balances environmental responsibility, financial stability, sustainability, and community support. And it also keeps curbside recycling collection accessible and consistent to all while avoiding unintended impacts on small businesses and organizations. So BRA is asking that they get council direction by June 30th to allow them time to have proper planning for their implementation of the program in 2027. So that's it in a nutshell. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hackett. Colleagues, questions or first comments? Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Kasenberg. Mr. Hackett, thank you for your report. I know you've put a lot of work into this, and I appreciate that. I think I have to agree. I like the option 1 approach with not choosing to provide or charge any kind of user fees at this time. I think it's good that we continue to provide this service for free so that our residents and, well, you know, those in businesses, commercial, industrial, and churches, organizations can have this service for free. And I think that it's a win-win. We're still able to absorb these costs at this time and still contribute to reserves. So I think it's a good approach. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to comment? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. Mark, thanks very much for this excellent report. This council has been adamant about the fact that the province did not specifically require producers to take on the responsibility for industrial, commercial, industrial uses or recycling. It clearly is a step backwards. Nevertheless, I think BRA and the municipality has shown its ability to comply with what the rules are and still pick up the ICI materials in a separate run and at additional expense. This is an unfortunate cost that the municipality has, and BRA this current year, and what's being proposed coming forward. I certainly agree with what the recommendation is to continue on that same basis. May I suggest, though, that for some 330 property or bins, that perhaps staff could inform those property owners that have those bins that the municipality has made this decision. And thankfully, if council agrees that we're making this decision, that they will understand is that we're working as best as possible to be able to serve them, while at the same time ensuring that we have as much landfill capacity as we can. We're trying to, it's a very special thing to have the amount of landfill capacity that we have, and to have recyclables go in where they don't need to is not only a shame, it's worse than that. But anyways, I certainly am in support, and thanks very much for your report. And I'm certainly in favor of proceeding as what's suggested. I will go back to, in our consent agenda, the annual report from the BRA showed a boat on a rocky or on a very uneasy waters. There is sunlight, though, in there, and we are able to work within those rules and regulations, but this specific provision has made it extremely difficult to be able to provide the services for all. And if council agrees, I think we are doing our best to do just that. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to comment? All right, I have a resolution for our consideration as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives the Industrial, Commercial and Institutional, or ICI, Recycling Collection Report dated May 11th, 2026, and that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth advises the Blue Water Recycling Association that the Municipality of North Perth will continue participation in the ICI curbside collection program under the current service model. Can I call for a mover on this one? Councillor Richardson, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Blazek. Any discussion or debate? Councillor Rothwell.
Just for clarity through you, Mayor Todd, when we're saying under their current arrangement, my understanding is that under the current arrangement, the Blue Water Recycling Association is the one that's actually paying for those additional costs. Is that not correct, or have I misunderstood?
Through you, Mayor, that was the wording that Blue Water provided for this. I think they're simply meaning that it's fully funded through the municipality. That's my understanding.
Yeah. On that basis, I'm certainly in agreement.
Okay.
Thank you.
And if there are any surprises, well, we'll come hunt you down.
You might have to.
Okay. All right. Anyone else with comments or questions, discussion or debate? It's duly moved and seconded. Let's have that vote. And that's carried. Thanks, Mr. Hackett.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have two items from the Strategic Initiatives Department as item 9.3 on our agenda. In item 9.3.1, staff bring forward a report that proposes new clarifications about the definitions of attainable housing for our Affordable and Attainable Housing CIP. I'll call on Director of Strategic Initiatives, Jessica McLean, to present us some clarifying new options. Welcome, Ms. McLean.
Good evening, Mayor and members of Council. So tonight I am presenting a report on proposed amendments to some of the definitions within our Attainable and Affordable Housing Community Improvement Plan. So as Council is aware, the CIP is intended to support the construction and rehabilitation of attainable and affordable rental housing by offering financial incentives to eligible projects. This report brings forward two proposed changes to better align the program with market conditions and improve uptake. So the first amendment relates to the definition of attainable housing. Currently, attainable rates are based on 30% of median household income. However, feedback from stakeholders indicates that the current rates are not effectively supporting the intended outcomes of the plan. In particular, some rates are too high from an affordability perspective. Staff are recommending that the definition be updated to use the median renter income rather than median household income, with a one-bedroom unit serving as the baseline. This approach is consistent with methods used by CMHC and has been adopted by other municipalities. This change would provide a more accurate reflection of what renters can afford and allow for a range of unit types with appropriately scaled rental rates. And there is a chart featured in the report that compares the rates of the current definition and the proposed definition. The second proposed change is the removal of the arm's length requirement. Currently, the CIP requires that units be rented to tenants who are not related to the property owner. This was originally included to align with provincial legislation related to development charge exemptions. However, program uptake, particularly for ADUs, has been limited, as previously discussed with Council. Feedback indicates that property owners are more likely to participate if they are permitted to rent units to family members, such as adult children or aging parents. Removing this requirement would reduce a barrier to participation in the CIP while still maintaining that units remain affordable or attainable for a minimum of 15 years. Overall, these amendments are intended to improve the effectiveness of the CIP by better aligning with renter realities and encouraging increased participation in the program. And I'm happy to answer any questions Council may have related to these amendments.
Thank you, Ms. McLean. A good report. Colleagues, questions, first comments? Councillor Blazek.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Kasenberg. I just wanted to say that I am very, very happy to support the proposed definition change, and I wish that we could change it across so many of our policies that include the definitions of affordable and attainable, but this is really great. Thanks for bringing this to us.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I have a resolution. As follows, the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves the below definition amendments to the North Perth Affordable and Attainable Housing CIP documents. Update of attainable definition to a one-bedroom unit rented at no more than 30% of the median renter income for the area as determined by CMHC, and remove arm's length transaction definition and requirement from the CIP implementation policy and the CIP financial incentives agreement templates. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Johnston, thank you, is our mover, seconded by Councillor Blazek, thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried, thank you. In item 9.3.2, something a bit unusual, with some lot ownership in lands in Atwood that have earlier been the subject of Council's interest for possible affordable or attainable housing development. I'll call on, again, Ms. McLean, who's with us to give us an update and a history lesson, I think. Ms. McLean.
Thank you. So this report is in regards to the George Street parcel in Atwood. And staff are seeking approval to proceed with the expropriation of a portion of land to support future development. In 2023, Council may recall that the municipality retained a consultant to complete a Phase 1 and Phase 2 environmental assessments on part of the former CNR rail lands in Atwood. So that is pictured in the report as Figure 1. This work is required to obtain a record of site condition, which would allow the land to be considered for residential or other community uses. Through our initial review, staff identified this area as a potential location for affordable housing, although there may be other future uses for council to consider once the site is ready for redevelopment. So as part of this work, staff believed the full site area, including the 2 George Street parcels, were owned by the municipality. However, a title search later confirmed that one of these parcels is not owned by North Perth and remains registered to a private individual with no updates on title since 1891. So to complete the record of site condition process and enable future development, it is necessary to resolve this ownership issue. As the current owner cannot be located, the most practical and legally appropriate approach is to proceed with expropriation under the Expropriations Act. This will allow the municipality to consolidate the site, complete the required environmental and planning steps, and then move forward with future development opportunities if council decides to do so. So from a financial perspective, North Perth is required to follow the legislative process for expropriation. This includes notices, registration, and appraisal. While compensation must be provided, it is unlikely that a claimant will come forward given the age of the title. Funding for this work, though, is available within the approved 2026 Strategic Initiatives Department budget, and I'm happy to answer any questions council may have.
Thank you, Ms. McLean. Quite an interesting story indeed. Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you through you, Mayor Kasenberg. I have a question. In the diagram, or in the actual photos, one of the parcels has some buildings, a couple of buildings kind of included. So I'm just kind of confused how perhaps the title search didn't come up with anything and how that part works. Thanks.
Through the mayor, so the parcel that is actually not owned by the municipality is the one to the left, I guess, of the screen. Yeah. In the kind of fuchsia area. Yes, over there. So I am not familiar with those buildings. Perhaps the CAO could provide some detail on that.
CAO Snell, did you want to comment on this, or do you want Councillor Duncan or I to comment on it? He's saying, go ahead. Councillor Duncan, I think you're up.
That's a house.
That's a house. There's like a road allowance in there, right? And that there's a house that at present is accessed from that side of the property, from the Highway 23 side of the property, if I'm not mistaken. It's sort of tucked in behind the Esso station, if that's helpful for our colleagues.
And that is on the actual portion of George Street that is owned by us.
Right.
So this is the portion of George Street to the east, or sorry, to the west, and there's no buildings on the actual portion of George Street that we think we own, or that we thought we owned.
Okay. So the land is not encumbered with construction or structures at this point in time. That's the land in question. Councillor Johnston, you look puzzled.
Well, I'm just assuming because it's an unopened road allowance, nobody's been paying the taxes since 1891 on this. Like, nobody's been receiving a tax bill then either, have they? Because we thought we owned it.
CAO Snell, go ahead.
So again, this is one of these things that I think should have been corrected when some of the information was moved from the old land titles to land registry, but it obviously wasn't. But even looking at the old assessment maps that we have paper copy in the office, they have George Street as an unopened road allowance. So obviously, historically, it's been assumed this has been an unopened road allowance for a long time, but it does have some gentleman's name on it that probably hasn't been around for a little bit at least.
A little bit at least. I think that's the colorful comment of the night. All right. Anyone else with the questions or comments here? Okay, this is a long resolution because it's a formal declaration of intent to expropriate. And I think in terms of process, a claimant could come forward in response to the publication of our intention to expropriate. Is that correct, Ms. McLean?
Through the mayor, yes, it is correct. It is unlikely, but it is correct.
Thank you. All right, so here we go. That the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves an application for approval to expropriate the interests in land set out in Attachment A for future residential or community use. 2, that the clerk be authorized to execute the application for approval to expropriate land and notice of application for approval to expropriate land, the notice, and to serve and publish the notice was required under the, as required, sorry, under the Expropriations Act or the Act. The clerk be authorized to forward to the Chief Inquiry Officer any requests for an inquiry, a hearing of necessity that are received. The solicitor for the municipality be authorized to represent the municipality at an inquiry, a hearing of necessity held under the Act. Council, as approving authority, approves the expropriation of the interests in land provided there is no hearing of necessity requested and not withdrawn in accordance with the Act. Where approval to expropriate the land is given, the clerk, in consultation with the municipal solicitor, be authorized to register a plan of expropriation and execute and serve any notices required under the Act. And where approval to expropriate the land is given, council authorizes the introduction of the necessary bylaw to give effect to these recommendations. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Johnston's gently nodding his head with a little smirk on his face, I notice. Councillor Rothwell will be the seconder. Thank you. Any discussion or debate? If a claimant shows up, I want that person's longevity secrets. Okay, I'm not seeing any discussion or debate, so let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you, Ms. McLean, for the work tonight. Interesting stuff. Let's turn now to a slew of items, actually, from the Infrastructure Services Department. As item 9.4 on our agenda. Item 9.4.1, staff bring forward the draft of an agreement to sell a small parcel of land adjacent to the North Perth Trail to Whiteman Communications. I'm going to call on Celine Mayhew, who's standing before us, to tell us, Development Coordinator, to tell us more about this option and answer any questions. Welcome, Ms. Mayhew.
Good evening, Mayor Kiesenberg and members of council. Whiteman Telecom has approached the municipality of North Perth requesting to support expansion of their local fiber optic network. As a part of this expansion, they are proposing the construction of a new point of presence building to house switching equipment. There's a similar facility currently on Elma Street, and that facility has reached capacity. To support their continued growth, staff have identified a suitable parcel of municipal land, approximately 15 by 21 meters, located adjacent to the North Perth Trail with frontage off Fairlane Road, which you can see in the picture there. The property will be purchased for $1 and all legal fees will be covered by Whiteman. In addition, Whiteman will be providing dark fiber to select North Perth facilities to enhance connectivity and support in future municipal operations. In summary, this proposal supports improved broadband infrastructure in the community with no direct financial impact to the municipality, while also providing long-term technological benefits. Staff are recommending that council deem the land as surplus and proceed with the adoption of the required bylaw to authorize the execution of the agreement of purchase and sale.
Thank you, Ms. Mayhew. Did you want to explain dark fiber?
I was hoping you would ask. I actually have a little blurb here that I asked our IT department to provide because I also didn't know when I first heard about it. So the fiber optic cable is installed by Whiteman, but the internet services are provided by our IT department. This is essentially a private internet service that we own and manage, but the lines themselves are provided by Whiteman. We will not get billed monthly for services to these locations as it will all be managed in-house, and it gives us added security as they are only used by the municipality.
How about that? All right. I think we're much better informed now. Colleagues, questions or first comments? I'm not seeing any, so it looks like a simple transaction here. As follows, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth deems Part 2 of Reference Plan 44R 6474 as surplus and directs staff to prepare a deeming bylaw to authorize the sale of Part 2 of Reference Plan 44R 6474 to Whiteman Telecommunications. Moved by Councillor Andreessen, seconded by Deputy Mayor Kellum. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. It also appears that it's time to clean up some legacy road allowances in Trowbridge. So Ms. Mayhew is again with us to item 9.4.2 to talk about the opportunity to initiate the process, remove obsolete road allowances which are beyond the settlement boundary, and transfer any of these lands to adjacent landowners. I think I got the description right. Ms. Mayhew, take it away.
Jessica actually set me up really well for this one with her unopened road allowances. So this report presents an opportunity to address long-standing issues related to the historic subdivision plan for Trowbridge, which was originally established in 1858. Through our ongoing review of land use planning, staff have identified several unopened road allowances that are located outside the current and proposed settlement boundary. These road allowances are no longer required for municipal infrastructure or community use and have remained unused for over 160 years. This proposal is to formally stop up and close those road allowances and transfer the remnant parcels to adjacent landowners. This approach will help clarify property ownership, eliminate potential land use conflicts, and provide modest economic benefit by increasing usability and value of these lands. It is also worth noting that many adjacent property owners may not be aware that these lands are not already part of their property, which further supports the need to regularize ownership. To implement this, staff would undertake the necessary steps, including reference plans, required bylaws, and consultation with affected landowners. From a financial perspective, costs associated with preparation of survey and legal work would be recovered through the transfer process, minimizing the impact to the municipality. Staff recommends that council direct staff to initiate the process for the unopened road allowances beyond Trowbridge settlement boundary, including consultation with adjacent landowners and the necessary approval bylaws. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Mayhew. Questions, colleagues? I have one. What if the landowners don't want to assume the financial responsibility for paying for legal transaction costs, et cetera? They just decide they don't want to pay for it.
Through you, Mayor Kasenberg, none of these landowners are obligated to take on the lands. I'm sure someone else nearby would be happy to take it on. It's all optional, and we have had people come forward already inquiring about these unopened lands, so I don't think finding a home for them would be an issue.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with questions or comments? I have a resolution as follows. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth directs staff to initiate the process to address the unopened road allowances beyond the Trowbridge settlement boundary, including required actions to eliminate the identified road allowances and consultation with adjacent landowners regarding the transfer of ownership of remnant land parcels. Can I call for a mover? Moved by Councillor Nordum. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Anstett. Discussion or debate? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. I will say that this has been an item which has been discussed, about 20 years ago, and the decision was that not to proceed at that time. Nevertheless, I think it's great that we're proceeding with this, if council agrees. However, I do want to make sure that these are not ever going to be considered separate and distinct parcels. I just heard our staff mention about other people being interested in these lands. I believe it should be either an abutting property owner that actually would obtain this property and for a fee to cover those costs as opposed to a separate parcel. I just want to make sure that's in fact the case.
Through you, Mayor Kasenberg, no, these will not become their own parcels. The Planning Act does not support undersized agricultural parcels. So when I said that, I meant maybe not the neighbor to the left, but the neighbor to the right kind of thing.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with questions or comments? I think this is duly moved and seconded. Let's have that vote. And that is carried. All right, thank you, Ms. Mayhew. Nice to see you at the table. Next up, in item 9.4.3, Council is invited to commission a Section 78 under the Drainage Act for the repair and maintenance of the Heimers Municipal Drain. This one is also an oldie, but apparently a goodie. The action would appoint an engineer. I'm going to call on Drainage Superintendent Scott Richardson to tell us more about the option and answer any questions we might have. Mr. Richardson, as always, welcome.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Just the Heimers Drain, it serves lots 26, concession 12, all the way up to lot 32, concession 9. That's kind of line 72 in the Donegal area. The watershed's approximately 400 acres. The Heimer Drain was originally constructed in 1916 by a report by John Roger. He was an Ontario land surveyor. The drain was built in two parts. It had a 1,500 meter open portion and a 2,100 meter tile portion. The drain consists of 6-inch tile at the top end and continues downstream, where it transitions from 7 to 8 to 10 and 12-inch tiles to its outlet, and goes into the McCourt drain. The last report for the Heimers Drain was prepared by James Howes, also a land surveyor, in 1974, and this report was for deepening the entire 1,500 meter open drain. The request for the Section 78 was received on April the 15th of this year from Birch Lawn Farms, owner of Lot 31, Concession 10, and they'd like to see it upsized to a modern standard with sufficient drain capacity. There will be a new road crossing as part of the project. Cost for the crossing will be determined by the engineer, and he'll present that at a preliminary meeting with the cost estimate. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Streamline Engineering, I'm not sure I've seen that name at our table before. Did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, they're a newer firm. They made our roster. They were, 3 young lads that worked for Burnsides before. So they ventured out on their own, and yeah, we should give them a shot here.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Colleagues, other questions or first comments? I'm not seeing any, so I have the resolution as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth proceeds in accordance with Section 78 of the Drainage Act for the improvement of the Heimers Municipal Drain, and that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth appoints Streamline Engineering to investigate, design, and prepare a report for the Heimers Municipal Drain. Can I call for a mover? Moved by Councillor Johnston, seconded by Councillor Nordum. Any discussion or debate? Not seeing any. Let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Always a pleasure to have you here. And now we turn to the director, who gets a shot at a couple of items. In item 9.4.4, staff bring forward what is significant work. And it seems like tonight we've had a couple that have got files that have gone back some way from what I'm hearing. This is the introduction of a new parking and traffic bylaw for consideration by council. It's a long one with lots of nuance and an interesting range of offenses that are captured. I'm going to call on our Director of Infrastructure Services, Matt Ropp, to walk us through this, including the process with the province should we elect to move forward. Apparently we need their consent to some of this, and to answer any of our questions. Welcome, Mr. Ropp.
Good evening, Mayor Kaysenberg and members of council. Happy to have seems to be almost the entire Infrastructure Services Department with me tonight. I'm here to provide council with an update on the municipality's traffic and parking bylaw review. The current bylaw was last comprehensively adopted in the year 2000. Since that time, schedules have been updated as needed, but staff have identified the need for a broader review to improve clarity, align the bylaw with current legislation and municipal practices, as well as strengthen enforcement tools. The proposed updates are largely technical in nature. They include revised formatting and definitions, clearer provisions for fire roads, intersection parking setbacks, temporary parking restrictions, and recreational encroachments. Additional updates also address matters such as electric vehicle charging stations, heavy truck parking, boulevard alterations for unauthorized parking, and enforcement authority, including towing and emergency-related parking controls. So a very thorough review was undertaken. Staff also reviewed the schedules A through N, which predominantly include all our traffic signage to ensure the bylaw reflects what's currently in place, as well as schedules O and P, which were including the offenses and fine schedules. There was a comprehensive comparator that were done with neighboring municipalities to ensure that comparable fines were utilized. There are no financial impacts associated with these proposed updates. For this updated traffic and parking bylaw to come in force, including the fines, the municipality of North Perth must first adopt it through a bylaw before the Ministry of the Attorney General and the Ministry of Transportation will complete a formal review and issue approval. Meaning that the current bylaw, which is 47-PW-2000, will continue in full force and effect until the updated traffic and parking bylaw is considered for adoption by this council and approvals are received from the appropriate ministries. I do have with me tonight Sally McMullen, who's the chief billing official and who oversees our bylaw team. If there's any questions on the fine schedules that you see in front of you tonight, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Ropp. Colleagues, questions, first comments? This is a big initiative and can have a certain impact on parts of the community, I suppose. Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, and through you, thanks very much for the report. Can you just inform Council regarding the review dealing with electric scooters, as well as golf carts and those sorts of types of vehicles, as to whether they're going to be regulated under the our bylaw, and specifically it's when scooters and so on are both on our sidewalks as well as when they're on our streets.
Looking back to Ms. McMasha, see if she wants to help with this one.
Chair recognizes Ms. McMullen, our chief building official.
Good evening, Council and Mayor Kasenberg. I'm just looking in the definitions right now to answer your question. Motor vehicles includes automobiles, motorcycles, motor-assisted bicycle, but does not include streetcar or other motor vehicles running on rails, power-assisted bikes, motor snow vehicles. I might need a bit more time to find golf carts in here. And I do recall seeing it in a different bylaw. So I do need some time to answer your question, I think. You asked about golf carts and scooters.
Yes, so those scooters could be usually they're two wheels and they're electric charged, as opposed to ones where we have people that are using their own legs to power themselves, as opposed to an electric one. That was the issue. And then golf carts, certainly in some communities they've become an issue in terms of being used for on our streets as opposed to and or sidewalks, which creates an issue, I think.
That is a different bylaw, though, I'm pretty sure, right? That's in, what's the name of that bylaw, CAO Snell? The sort of the ATV, what we call the ATV bylaw?
The off-road use bylaw, I think.
Off-road use, the off-road vehicle use, yeah. And I think those are covered there, if I remember right. So this is more about parking and traffic, right?
We specifically reference in here bicycles, because bicycles are now powered sometimes or have assistive power as well. So we do differentiate in here between a motorized bicycle and a power assist bicycle, and where they would have restrictions. The scooters, I think, we're not talking about assistive devices, we're talking about like a motorized recreational vehicle.
That's right.
Which I do believe is in off-road vehicles, but I would need to double check before I answer fully.
Okay, anyone else with questions or first comments? The proposed action here at this point is that we just received the report for information. Colleagues comfortable with proceeding with that resolution? All right, I'll read it as formally, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth accepts the traffic and parking bylaw update report for information. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Anstett, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Duncan. Any discussion or debate further? All right, I'm not seeing it, so let's have that vote. We're missing one. And there we go, and that is carried. Thank you. All right, let's turn to item 9.4.5. Mr. Ropp is still with us to share with us some information about road markings or line painting, some of which I did not know before I read this report for this meeting. This is in response to a query from Councillor Noordam about this matter, and Mr. Ropp, you're going to walk us through this.
Yep. Good evening again, Council. This report responds to Council's request from September 3rd, 2025 to review the financial implications of adding centerline markings on rural roads that fall below the Ontario traffic manual thresholds and to identify any candidate roads for consideration. Staff reviewed the applicable guidelines in OTM Book 11. While centerline markings are generally used on two-lane, two-way roads, the manual recognizes that they may not be necessary on low-volume roads unless there are additional risks such as collision history, nighttime traffic, tourist traffic, fog, or other site-specific hazards. From an operational perspective, painting center lines on low-volume roads can provide improved visual guidance for motorists, particularly at night, in unfamiliar areas or where roadway alignment creates additional driver uncertainty. It may also create a more consistent appearance across the municipal's road network. At the same time, marking roads that fall below the OTM thresholds may provide limited benefit where traffic volumes, roadway width, and operational conditions do not support continuous centerline treatment. The municipality should also consider that pavement markings do not change the physical condition or standard of the roadway and may create an expectation of a higher order road treatment where road geometry, shoulder conditions, and vehicle use clash, such as agriculture or bigger farm equipment, may not change the physical condition or standard of the roadway. On that basis, a selective approach that considers traffic volumes, pavement width, and collision history and site-specific operating conditions would be more consistent with the OTM guidance than applying centerline markings broadly across the low-volume rural roads. Staff have confirmed that based on current traffic count data, there are no additional North Perth roads that presently exceed the OTM threshold for centerline pavement markings. Financially, from a perspective looking at it, adding centerline markings to the approximately 125 kilometers of paved rural roads that currently do not receive centerline markings would cost approximately $40,000 per yearly application, in addition to a required fee that would basically help us set up to determine precisely where the centerline of the road is to be painted. The 2026 pavement marking budget does not account for additional centerline painting outside the current identified areas. And then just to provide council with a little bit more context, staff did a bit of a straw poll of our neighbors, I would say within a 30 to 50 minute to 60-minute drive from municipality, just to get an idea of what municipalities do and don't implement this practice. So obviously it was Mapleton Township that was highlighted back in September as a municipality that does implement a system-wide approach. And the other ones that the municipality were able to decipher as well were Saugeen Shores and the municipality of Bluewater. Huron East, they were able to get back to us and let us know that they've kind of adapted their own approach where they've set a limit. So their limit was 250 vehicles per day on average. And if a road met that threshold, then they would paint the centerline roads. And those were the only ones that we were able to find. So none of the other lower tiers within Perth County, Minto, Morris Turnberry, Howick, Kincardine, South Bruce, Brockton, none of those municipalities currently have a system-wide approach to centerline markings. Just to give you an idea of what the trend is around outside of North Perth. And again, just to give you an idea on traffic counts, I didn't statistically list the OTM book requirements, but again, it's off the width of the road and the average vehicles that it sees during the peak time is the way that the OTM lists it. So at peak time, our roads range anywhere from a low of 8, which would be, I think that was line 89 out in the farther limits, all the way up to 77 vehicles per peak hour. And some of the limits that you see in the book are talking around 200 vehicles per per that peak hour. So we have some roads such as line 84, which is 151, and you saw in the council minutes, that's one of the roads that we do paint currently. So we do have some roads that we're actively looking at what the current threshold is and applying markings as that standard sets. And that's all I have to report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, colleagues, questions, first comments? Councillor Nordum?
Thanks, and through you, Mayor Kasenberg. First of all, thanks, Matt, for the report. You definitely put a lot of work into it, and it really shows. And thanks for contacting all the local municipalities to try and get some solid numbers for us. This has been something that quite a few residents have just talked about, that there is spoken interest in proceeding with maybe a line in the center of the road. As it speaks to in Matt's report, like fog on rural roads can be pretty tough to see. And I also think for ourselves, we run equipment, snow plows in the wintertime. And if we give a line of sight sometimes for maybe some of our operators, and we can keep a plow out of the ditch, that's already maybe a $5,000 towing bill. So I would be interested to see this proceed to the next budget round, but I would like to hear maybe from around the council table. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Nordum. Councillor Andreessen, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you through you, Mayor Kasenberg. I also agree with the importance of having some line painting done on rural roads. I guess one of my thoughts would be, though, could we, if we were to, move forward and consider how to do this, perhaps looking at our own threshold of what type of traffic would determine which roads would need to be painted. And I think that there are some particular roads in rural Wallace and Alma townships that could warrant having this type of treatment done on the roads because of the heavier traffic versus just doing them all. My preference might be to really look at where the needs are, and that might help with budgeting as well. But I think some further consideration and discussion would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Blazek?
Thank you, through you, Mayor Kasenberg. Matt, I'm sorry, I can't recall what municipality you said sort of developed their own thresholds, but just echoing what Councillor Andreessen said, I think that looking at an approach like that might be really beneficial for our community members and the heavy farming traffic that we have.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, I have a resolution to receive the report for information. We probably should proceed with that regardless, but the question is, does someone want to tack something onto this before we consider it? Councillor Nordum.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Kasenberg. I would propose maybe a motion to maybe look at thresholds for traffic on some of our rural roads. And should we talk about this maybe around budget time in the 2027 budget? I might look to staff towards that.
Okay, CAO Snell, you have input on behalf of the staff in terms of workload and so forth?
Certainly I would propose, just because it has potential for operational budget implications, that it should become part of the 2027 budget process.
Okay, thank you. So why don't we indicate that, do we want to pick up the discussions about these thresholds before the budget process unfolds and determine whether council wants to act, or do you want to wait till budget season and then that can all roll into next year?
I think we can all roll it into one process. We'll have that information available.
Okay.
And a suggestion into what the budget implications would be.
Okay, so I think the extra clause in the resolution reads to the effect that council directs staff to bring forward in the 2027 budget discussions the opportunity to further discuss traffic markings. Does that sound about right, Clerk Klein? Okay. Deputy Clerk Carter, are you with us? Okay. Anyone strongly object to that notion that we consider a slightly longer resolution than what was proposed? Okay, I'm not seeing strong objections, so we'll have essentially the resolution with two clauses. The first is that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives the low-volume roads traffic paint markings report for information, and then there's the extra clause, which if you ask me to remember word for word, I would not be able to do. But let's consider that. I think everyone understands the intent. Can I call for a mover? Moved by Councillor Andreessen, seconded by Councillor Nordum. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. Yeah. And that is carried. Thank you. Councillor Blazic has suggested we take a 5-minute break. We're not too far from the end of the meeting, I don't think, but it is a good idea. Sure. This mayor is starting to feel overwatered, so let's take a 5-minute break. All right, I think we're back. That allows us to move to item 10 on our agenda. The obvious question is, does any member of council wish to ask for a report from staff or of a committee? But Councillor Duncan has informed me that he has a report that he'd like to make back on behalf of his investigation with the county about a matter raised earlier at this table. So Councillor Duncan, why don't we call on you to take care of that for us?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. At a previous meeting, there was some information requested about Road 147 and timelines for reconstruction, and county staff has provided me with some information about that. So it's in the forecast of a reconstruction in 2027. Geotechnical work was done in 2025. Originally, it was forecasted to be reconstructed in 2025, but it was pushed out to 2027 to allow for the results of the road rationalization study to be completed first. The work is planned to go from line 81 to line 86, about 4 kilometers. And Bill Wilson tells me that they are currently proceeding with design work, and he expects to have a full design and tender package prepared by the end of the year ready to proceed to construction in 2027, and it will be in the capital budget for 2027.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan, for inquiring on behalf of that. Councillor Johnston, with regards to the extent of the road that needs to be redone, did the description match your expectation?
Yes, that's definitely the worst portion of the road. Matt, one more question. Is it a rebuild or just a repaving? Do you know?
Bill has it in here as a reconstruction.
I'm going to put your microphone on.
Bill has it listed in his email as a reconstruction. I can get some more information about how far they want to go for you if you need that. It's not a problem.
Okay. So thank you, Councillor Duncan, for chasing that on behalf of this council. Colleagues, any reports that you'd like to request? I'm not seeing that. For item 11 tonight, we have no additional items of correspondence drawn to our attention for disposition. So at this point, we can turn to the bylaws that we have before us. We have 2 of them. The enabling resolution that I will bring to the table, if you let me, outlines for each of them their number and their purpose. Before I read that resolution, does any councillor wish to extract one from the other so that they're considered separately? I'm not seeing it, so as follows. The following bylaws are hereby passed. 12-2026 being a bylaw to provide for the regulation and control of traffic on the highways of the municipality of North Perth, and 37-2026 being a bylaw to authorize the signing of an agreement with Rogers Communication Canada. Can I call for a mover? Moved by Councillor Nordum, seconded by Councillor Richardson. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried unanimously. That kind of vaguely interests me. I gather in history from what Mr. Ropp was saying that the last time a parking and traffic bylaw was before this council, it was sort of kicked off the table. And here we are tonight. We're good. It's time to update this. So congratulations to Mr. Ropp and his team for the work on this. Much appreciated. All right, let's turn then to item 13 on our agenda. Does any councillor wish leave to give notice of motion tonight? Not seeing that. For item 14 on our agenda, are there any announcements that would be of benefit to our community or that reflect well on North Perth? Colleagues, anything tonight? Not seeing that. Let's turn to item 15. We have no matters for consideration in a closed session meeting of council, which means that we can also move past item 16 on our agenda. We have no matters to report about because we didn't hold a closed session. Council has a mandated good practice acts near the end of its meeting to confirm all of the actions and business of its meeting through what is called the confirmatory bylaw. I have an enabling resolution for that bylaw as follows, that bylaw 39-2026, being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, is hereby passed. Moved by Deputy Mayor Callum, seconded by Councillor Rothwell. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Colleagues, for our bylaws that touch on provincial priorities that were considered and passed at tonight's meeting, I will not execute a veto. This information is, will be provided to the clerk and is part of my required duties as mayor. We have completed deliberation and taken action on the business that has come before us tonight. I do want to advise council of one little thing. On Thursday of this week, a number of local mayors and the warden of Perth County and several of the mayors from Wellington County have been invited to participate at Queen's Park in meetings with cabinet ministers of the Ford government. And so we will be taking a number of issues with us that we intend to have open discussions about with members of the cabinet and staff from the various ministries affected. So you should be aware that CAO Snell and I will be the North Perth version of Thelma and Louise on Thursday. And, oh no. and hopefully we come back with, as I like to say to Mr. Ray, wheelbarrows of money. That's always the goal. So it's appropriate now for us to consider adjournment. We probably should have considered adjournment before I cracked bad jokes about driving companionships. And it is as follows, that the council meeting adjourns at 9:03 p.m. to meet again for regular council business on Monday, May 25th, 2026 at 7 p.m. Moved by Councillor Andreessen, seconded by Councillor Blazek. Thank you. It's not debatable. Let's have that vote. Councillor Nordum records a manual in favor vote. We have the 10 accounted for votes. Colleagues, that motion is carried. Our next regular council meeting is Monday, May 25th, 2026 at